Welcome back. I'm Lauren Pastrana in This Week for Jim DeFeeti. President Joe Biden is on track to sign the most executive orders of any president during the first month in office since Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1933. Some are new directives, while others simply reverse Trump-era policies. And several of the actions have focused on equity for all, regardless of race, ethnicity, or sexual orientation. I spoke with Melba Pearson, a civil rights and criminal rights attorney and the new policy director at FIU's Center for the Administration of Justice, to get her take on just how meaningful these executive actions really are.
Melba Pearson, thank you so much for being with us, and congratulations on your role as the Director of Policy and Programs at FIU's Center for the Administration of Justice. Now, part of your work there is managing a project that is focused on reducing racial disparities. Typically, we rank a president, how they're doing after the first 100 days in office. It's only been about 3 weeks for President Joe Biden, but how would you say he's doing so far as reducing racial disparity in this country?
Thank you so much for having me on, Lauren. And this is definitely a timely discussion as we look at what criminal justice can look like moving forward into the 21st century, as well as what we want our society to look like, especially after the summer that we've had, as well as the events at the Capitol on January 6th. So at this juncture, I would give President Biden high marks because he is the first and only president to name racism as a problem. He specifically calls out white extremism in his early comments, as well as in his executive orders. He literally came out the gate, number one, addressing private prisons, which has long been a concern for many people across the country, but especially for communities of color, and the disparate treatment that many people end up receiving as a result of these private prison contracts. So he has ended the contract with the private prisons. So as soon as the contract is up and the time frame is over, they will not be renewing or creating any new contracts with federal prisons for private prisons. So that, I think, is really great. Also, he was very clear with regards to xenophobia and how people who are part of the Asian Pacific Islander community have faced an increase in hate crimes just because of where they're from and because of the racist rhetoric of the last president accusing them of being the source of COVID-19. So he was very clear to speak to that, and that these actions will not be tolerated. This sort of rhetoric will not be tolerated. And of course, he also dismantles the 1776 Commission, which was something the last president put in place with the purpose of teaching American history minus the role of white supremacy, white extremism, and racism in the founding of our country, which is pretty disingenuous because you can't tell the full story if you're only presenting half of the evidence, right? You're going to have to talk about everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I think that President Biden has definitely taken some solid steps in the right direction. Of course, you got to put your money where your mouth is. So these executive orders are great, but what else is going to follow to give more teeth to these orders and to make sure there's funding to move forward with any initiatives that are going to be necessary to really address the underlying issues that we're struggling with as a country.
Let's talk a little bit more about that 1776 Commission report and what Joe Biden's executive order does. Immediately upon his office or his administration taking over, that whole section of the whitehouse.gov on the 1776 Commission report was taken down. What were the concerns raised by that report? Why was it commissioned in the first place, and how would they have even implemented that in schools?
Yeah, so it was in direct backlash to the 1619 Project, which was done and put together very extensively by a New York Times writer. I believe her name is Nicole Hannah-Jones, if I'm not mistaken. And so she's done a very interesting project that looked at, from a historical perspective and a factual perspective, the journey of African Americans from slavery all the way into today, and talking about the role of slavery in how our country was founded, and also laying the foundation for things like the 13th Amendment, which outlaws slavery except when in the criminal justice system, and sort of like how that fueled mass incarceration today. So that was a project that received, a lot of attention, and a lot of teachers were now starting to teach it in their schools as part of the curriculum. So unfortunately, the last president had a very racist viewpoint when it came to American history. He surrounded himself with advisors who held racist and anti-Semitic views. So it is no surprise that with that worldview swirling around the White House, that this 1776 commission was going to be taught. And they commissioned this report to be able to have teachers in this country ignore a whole massive part of American history. A lot of it was, it's about making Americans proud to be American again. And it's sort of like trying to absolve white Americans of guilt because, at the end of the day, they weren't here when slavery happened, right? But what this commission does is ignore the fact that those who don't know history are condemned to repeat it. And we saw that with the events of January 6th, because if people had known about our history or looked at the rise and fall of other civilizations in the world, you would have seen that the start is attacking free and fair elections. It's about attacking the media, so attacking the messenger, not in a way to be able to discredit the message. So this was all kind of hand and foot with his racist worldview, and Biden coming in and immediately disbanding this report and this commission shows that he is committed to racial justice, but how far is he going to go remains to be seen.
Other executive actions that he has taken just in those first couple of weeks or days really in office. One, executive order preventing workplace discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity, and also reversing the Trump administration's ban on transgender Americans joining the military. Some promising news for the LGBTQ community. What more do you see President Biden potentially doing, whether by way of executive action, or do you think there needs to be more actual legislation pushed through Congress at this point?
I think that there needs to be more legislation pushed through Congress. I definitely commend President Biden's repealing of that horrible transphobic executive order, because at the end of the day, if somebody wants to serve our country, who are we to step in the way of them being able to do that? I mean, that is the ultimate in patriotism. So I'm glad that he put that in place and centered what it means to be American and what it means to be a patriot. However, I still think that there's not enough protection for our LGBTQ community. I especially look at the number of transgender people who end up being murdered in this country, oftentimes with no resolution. Many times when they are attacked or something happens, they are not treated with respect by law enforcement, which it then in turn results in them not reporting crimes, which again allows people who are preying on our community and preying on the more vulnerable members of our community to be able to escape accountability. So I definitely want to see more protections for our LGBTQ community and more funding to go towards making sure that there's resources, mental health counseling support, because a lot of folks are going through trauma as a result of how they're being treated by others, as well as experiences with dealing with law enforcement. So if we don't address that trauma, it's going to result in other issues affecting our community and affecting our community safety.
And just as quickly as President Biden was able to sign those executive orders, unfortunately, in 4 years, you could see a situation where another new president could then sign new executive orders reversing a lot of what President Biden has done in just these first few weeks in office. So what do people need to know about the sort of teeth these executive orders have, and what needs to be done moving forward to promote justice for all?
Lauren, you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, the executive order lasts as long as the president does, or if the next subsequent president that comes in shares the same worldview. It is not the same as actual legislation, as actual law. So we definitely need to codify or to, basically put into law the executive orders that he's bringing forward to make sure that there's a lasting legacy. But again, if we look at some of these executive orders, for instance, having people who identify as transgender serve in the military was not a very divisive issue amongst the American people, right? Because at the end of the day, most people are like, if you're willing to lay down your life for this country, that's the end of the discussion. So I think the executive orders reflect where the majority of America is right now, but I agree that we definitely need to codify it to make sure that it can't be undone if we have another scenario where we have a president that has a very narrow worldview or holds a racist worldview, as we've unfortunately seen for the last 4 years.
Melba Pearson, thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you, Lauren.
Some have criticized President Biden for pushing through Democratic priorities via executive action, citing his promises for unity and bipartisanship. The majority of his orders so far have focused on combating the coronavirus pandemic.